Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sayo Thomas. I'm the head of enterprise management at Coronation Insurance PLC. I'll be moderating this bank assurance webinar brought to you today by Access Bank in partnership with Coronation Insurance PLC. First of all, I would like to express our profound gratitude to you for honoring our invitation to be at this webinar, and also offer our apologies for starting an hour later than planned. We had some technical issues with our teleconferencing platform. And I'll go straight now to our agenda for today. The theme for today's bank assurance webinar is managing risk at a time of uncertainty. Like we are all aware of, 2020 has been a year filled with quite some unexpected events, starting with the COVID-19 pandemic that was experienced earlier this year across the world. This impacted several businesses across several industries. And more recently, we had the EndSARS protests that affected quite some states in Nigeria. It's based on this, we can draw the conclusion that business environments require business owners to pay quite some attention to the wide range of risks that could impact their organizations. Today's event will be centered on key learnings that we can take on as business owners to manage our business risk exposure. To address these questions and concerns that every business owner have, we have selected quite some experienced keynote speakers with domain expertise in risk management. We're honored to have Mr. Taiwo Adeoye, the technical advisor of the Commissioner for Insurance, with us today. He'll be speaking on behalf of the Commissioner for Insurance, Mr. Sunday Thomas. We also have two additional keynote speakers, first being Dr. Femi Oyetunji, who is the Group Managing Director of Continental Re, a leading reinsurance firm in Nigeria and Sub-Saharan Africa. He will speak to us today on how we can manage risk in today's business world. Our second and final keynote speaker for today is Mr. Omotayo Gbede. Mr. Gbede is the managing partner of Crowns and Lords. He is a chartered accountant by practice, and he will lead a discussion on how inflation could impact your business and reasonable measures that you can take to safeguard your organization. This event is a live broadcast. We implore that you stay in a conducive place to have optimal audio reception. Without further ado, I would like to welcome the Deputy Group Managing Director of Access Bank PLC, Mr. Ogbonna Roosevelt, to take us on his welcome address. Please welcome Mr. Roosevelt for his opening remarks.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Sharon, for that lovely welcome to everyone. Let me add my welcome to Sharon's in this webinar, hopefully to be the first of many. We've themed this webinar, Managing Risk at a Time of Uncertainty, and clearly, I believe 2020 has proven to be a very uncertain year for everyone, irrespective of industry or your economic level within the market. So on behalf of Access Bank and Coronation Insurance, I'd like to thank you for honoring our invitation, and particularly for taking out time from your very busy schedule to be in attendance. As some of you might recall, Coronation Insurance, which was formerly known as Wapik Insurance, was part of Access Bank Group up until 2013 before it was spun off. We're extremely proud of the strides that Coronation has made in the last 10 years. It is today one of the 3 most capitalized insurance organizations in Nigeria, and has retained the honor and right as the fastest growing business risk underwriter over the last decade. I think what you find globally and in more developed markets is that the largest commercial banks all seek to provide a one-stop service showroom or supermarket for their customers. And they have to do this by partnering with third parties to bring this to life. Our partnership with Coronation is no different. I think it brings together what is the best of banking and the best of insurance in what we refer to as a bank assurance scheme. In fulfillment of the bank's promise to our customers that we want to be more than a bank to you, a promise of more than banking as we call it, we want our customers to experience the best in underwriting and claim experience and believe that this partnership makes that possible. Coronation is a natural partner for us, firstly because of our history as I just shared, but I think more importantly because it meets all the criteria that we would have wanted in an insurance partner in our market. The first of which is their speed of response and the level of customer service that Coronation brings to the table. And I think secondly and more critically is its financial strength and the capitalization of the institution. Now, I think you guys must be asking yourself, what does bank assurance and this partnership between our bank and Coronation mean for you? We believe that coming together, we will define and set new standards for quality and service delivery within the insurance industry. But I think more importantly, we elevate the level of insurance service that is delivered to SMEs and MSMEs, matching those that you saw within the banking sector and has propelled the industry, the banking industry that is, to what is today a benchmark for service within the Nigerian space. I think this partnership will only accelerate bringing that service excellence to bear even in a shorter period. To officially present this partnership to you, we've set up this webinar session. We've brought together a team of elite speakers with domain knowledge and vast experience in how risk is managed across businesses, particularly in the uncertain times as we find ourselves today. To this end, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our special guest speaker, the Commissioner of Insurance and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Insurance Commission, NICOM, Mr. Olorundare Sunday Thomas, to give his address around the theme of today, managing business risk at a time of uncertainty. Mr. Thomas, as a lot of you will know, is a thoroughbred insurance professional, having been in this industry for over 40 years. Prior to his appointment as the Commissioner of Insurance, he was the Deputy Commissioner in charge of technical matters at the Nigerian Insurance Commission between April of 2017 and August of 2019. Mr. Thomas, we are very grateful. I know you are being represented here, but we're very grateful for the presence of NICOM and the fact that you've chosen to honor us with your presence. Before handing over to him or his representative, I'd like to welcome again all our customers and all the attendees on behalf of Access Bank and Coronation Insurance, and expect that you have a wonderful time today during the course of this webinar. Please prepare yourself to be well informed. I'm excited at the opportunity to have our customers on the webinar with us, and hope that the rest of the day is as fulfilling for you as we know it to be for us. Thank you very much, and Shane, let me hand this over to you again.
Thank you very much, Roosevelt. So at this point, we move to the keynote speech by our guest speaker for today. Over to you, Taiwo.
All right, thank you, Sayan, and thank you, Mr. Roosevelt, who had planned, even as of this morning, to be part of this great occasion, partnership, and enlightenment. But due to circumstances beyond his control, he couldn't actually be part of this. So I sent his apology, but I'm going to do justice to what he had given me to do this morning. So it is my honor to welcome everybody again, once again, to this session on managing business risk at time of uncertainties. This topic is coming at a crucial time. We know the times we are in now. The global scene had recorded a lot of reactions and a lot of substitutional economic indices to what could be a moving forward from where the economy is. And we have also noticed due to the consequence of COVID-19 that strategies of deconstruction of the economy and we have also seen economies being vulnerable to debt and businesses being interrupted at one point or the other. So I want to especially bring the light of the Commissioner to acknowledge Access Bank and Coronation's partnership. This is an initiative that has come to align with the campaign of the Commission in terms of financial education and inclusiveness. So we are very key to this, and so that's why NICOM has decided to honor these invitations. So to our customers and our potential insuring public out there, we will just go straight to some key areas that we are to get ourselves abreast of in terms of what the deliverables of this session is all about. We all know the vulnerability of businesses to shocks and stress, majorly from external environment. Internal environment, yes, your small businesses you could try to manage them, but we are in times where external environment has been so prominent that if we don't have a reactive actions to them and be proactive at the same time, we might not be able to get the desired result as an entity. And also the year 2020, I want to re-emphasize, is a very phenomenal year for us as business owners, as business people in the world and in Nigeria particularly. The economies of many countries have similarly witnessed unprecedented downturn, but statistics have shown that there's going to be sharp and declining tendencies in our GDPs. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because whatsoever happens in the external environment affects our businesses. And so the effect of the social economic indices that we have seen as an aftermath effect of COVID-19 pandemic is very apt and very paramount, and we have to consider that same. Let's take a cue from the NSAS protest that just ended in the country. It's something that all of us could relate with extensively. And if you look at it, it has significantly impacted and interrupted so many businesses. And I could just wonder how a business will be able to strive if there are interruptions here and there. I mean, it makes you lose focus on what you're supposed to be strategically putting your attention on. And sadly to note is also the fact that recession, I mean, we just slipped into recession, and unfortunately these times we are in now, we are having double indices that could affect our economy. One is the inflation, and the secondly is the recession, which the economists call stagflation. So which means that you have so many intervening macro environment indices that could actually affect your businesses. But the truth be told that the impact of recession is not evenly distributed. So what affects me may not affect you. What seems to be a major issue for me to concentrate on as an entity may not be yours. But all the same, all these culminates in the fact that we have to sit down and look at our portfolios, look at our businesses, and see how we best manage them. So if you look at it, in considering the availability of alternatives that we have, so many options that we have in terms of techniques as business owners to be able to address all these macro environmental indices that could affect our businesses. And one of the things I want to point our attention to is what I call Irrationality Paradox. Irrationality Paradox tells us that at these times we are in now, what could come to the mind of everyone is, how do I reduce cost? How do I reduce the amount of expenses I incur as a business, because there's high inflation and there is also recession. But the paradox tells us that sometimes what we gain in terms of reducing cost could even be more in terms of what we lose. How do I mean? You could say that, oh, this is not the time to take up insurances. This is not the time to insure some assets. But I tell you that at the end of the day, you might end up eating down into your portfolio, eating down into your bottom line to be able to find your footing and sustainability. So at this point in time is not when I would say that we should. It's good to reduce costs, but in terms of insurances, we should ensure that all our assets are adequately insured. And this partnership and many other that the country is going to witness in this time to come, we will be able to really see that it's very important to actually have a good risk management framework, and also at the same time be able to manage our insurances and our assets. Many are left with options to cutting costs, as I've said. However, not all cutting costs will measure success, and some even end up hurting their businesses. I mean, so it's still going down to the bottom line as customers, as business owners. I mean, as entities that are springing up, we must ensure that we put all we have to do in place in terms of trying to manage our assets and trying to make sure that we have more strategic thinking. Recession have high impact on new and small firms. For big firms, impact is also there. But for small firms, for medium enterprises, it is even more germane because whatsoever hits a bottom line could affect the entire entity, the entire business, thus affecting the probability of liquidation. I mean, it is not everybody enters into business as a going concern. Nobody wants to enter into business and want to crash out at the end of the day. I mean, major things that make people always say that businesses don't die, but people kill businesses. But it is also important to let you know that people kill businesses sometimes unintentionally. And what do I mean by unintentional? You may think that the best way to approach this is this, but when you have risk management framework and you have good framework to be able to manage your risk, I tell you, you will be able to manage your risk, especially in this time and season that we are in. Therefore, new and big, small businesses and enterprises must do everything possible to transfer their risks. We have so many platforms within which you can transfer your risk. One of the proven and one of the testable and tested entity that can help you manage your risk, transfer your risk, is insurance. I'm speaking as a regulator at this point in time, and I can tell you that you need insurance. Risk is part of our daily businesses, is what we have come to terms with. I mean, if you don't want to take risk, you may not have even ventured into the businesses you are actually engaging yourself in now. But the moment you engage yourself into businesses, definitely you are prone to more risk. So the best thing is you try to identify, evaluate, and see what part of this risk can I really transfer. And better part is to look at what is going to be the consequence and the impact of this if there is a loss or there's a claim on these assets, on people you're insuring. So in light of what I've said, I want to make bold to say that the insurance industry all over the world, especially Nigeria in this context, has proven its relevance in the affairs of the economy. The economy relies on the backward part and protection of the insuring public, of the insurances. I mean, you can imagine if you get to insure your assets and all you have to say if anything happens is you call up on your agent, your broker, or your insurance company to set in. So this back insurance model has actually come, as Mr. Roosevelt has said, that is actually coming together of big different industries through the bank assurance platform to ensure that you are not only keeping your funds in the bank, you are not only trying to put a deposit in the bank, but the businesses that generated these funds are also protected. So that gives you, and that gives you, it gives you what I can call in this context a multiplier effect on your returns. So which means that you're not just relying on what you have in your bank account, but at the same time you have a partner who will advise you on what to insure in terms of your asset. These are the assets that helps to generate this fund. These are the assets that guarantees your existence and going concern in this business. So beyond just keeping the fund aside in the bank, the insurance companies also help you to ensure that these are also adequately important and protected. NICOM's role in this case continue to drive towards increasing access to a broad range of financial services, which will culminate into synergy between the bank and the insurance industry. This is one of the things, and I'm very sure that when we go into more technical sessions, you will see so many products, I believe, that you will have a glimpse of. And after this time out, and after this session, I'm sure there will be a platform within which our Coronation Insurance PLC will be able to begin to render advices as to the kind of products you should engage in to protect your adequate asset. And on this note, I want to say that the bank assurance model, which we are all championing today, I mean, this is one of its kinds. I like this knowledge sharing because it will give the insurance public and it will give the customers of the banks an opportunity and afford them the opportunity to be able to get enlightened and educated as to what basis of products they need to have at any point in time to be able to protect their assets. So without taking much of our time, I understand that the commissioner has just a few minutes, about 10 minutes to present this, but it's just a keynote address just to ensure that we keep the ball rolling, and we'll be going into more sessions where we have Mr. Motayo Bede and Dr. Femi Tunji that will be dealing more with other indices and going further into what we need to actually learn. But let me leave us with a thought, and the thought is that, as the moderator has said, and also Mr. Roosevelt has said, please take as much as you can. Try to ensure that you take as much points you can take, and I'm sure that at the end of the day you will be able to come out of this session with robust knowledge, and you'll be able to actually know the best of the combination between the banks and insurance industry. Thank you. On this note, I want to say you should take over. Seyon Thomas. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that enlightful session, Taiwo. As we all know, as it's an established fact actually across the world that SMEs represent the power engine of any vibrant economy. They hold several aspects or several things that we require for our day-to-day running, from the grocery shop along the corner of your house to the delivery person that brings in your day-to-day needs. So SME and the micro SME space, therefore, is a very important sector for every government agency, and NICOM being one of them. And from the session we had shortly, the keynote speech we had from Taiwo, we had that evidently reflected that NICOM actually is very conversant of the SME sector of Nigeria, and they are implementing measures. They are strongly behind the growth of that sector. Now, before we'll move to the next section for today. We have Dr. Femi Oyetunji, who will be speaking to us shortly. As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Femi is the managing partner of Continental Re. They are into reinsurance services. He will be speaking to us today on risk, and it would give us a bit more technical understanding, technical details of things that you should focus on for your small business. What are the possible risks that could impact you? And what are key steps? What are practical solutions that are very cost effective, might not require so many capital, that would keep your business on track? So at this point, I'll hand over to Dr. Femi to take us through the next session. Over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me acknowledge Mr. Gwena, the Deputy Managing Director. My apology. Let me recognize the Commissioner for Insurance. Taiwo, excellent job. I'm sure the Commissioner will be proud of your presentation. Mr. Gwena, the Deputy Managing Director of Access Bank Group, and my good friend, Mrs. Sadiq Koyer, the Managing Director of Coronation Insurance. Today, I have 20 minutes. I want to actually focus on interaction at a later point. So I'll try to be brief. The Commissioner has spoken on insurance. Who am I to say anything about insurance thereafter? So we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look at the current environment that we find ourselves. And then next slide, please. We're going to ask ourselves, why do we need to manage risk? What is risk? How do we treat a risk? Then we look at some of the major risks that SMEs face. Then we consider how to mitigate those risks. Then I would like to differentiate certain times from the current times that we find ourselves. What we find ourselves this year is more than uncertainty. This is what we call an extreme event. If we look at the current challenges, I don't think I should spend any time on this, because I'm sure the next presenter is going to dwell much on the current environment. But just to put things in perspective, I mean, we have a situation where inflation is in 14% going to 15%. Interest rates on deposits is anything between 0 and 0.5%. Lending rate is 22%. The pandemic has really turned everything upside down. And for small and medium scale enterprises, I think one of the things that you also find is that you have a huge component of foreign exchange impact on your businesses. And right now, your guess is as good as mine. Well, maybe Access Bank will be able to tell us better what the current exchange rate is. My understanding is the value is what you can pay for. The value of something is what you pay for it. But if you cannot even find that item, then the value becomes slightly undeterminable. So why do we manage risk? What is risk? I think next slide, please. Yeah, I think if people define risks in different format, but today we just want to keep it simple so that we can articulate properly and see how this affects each one of us. I've always said to people, as an individual, you're a company. As a family, you're a company. And also the focus of today, SMEs. But it's the same thing that affects each and every one of us. We have objectives. We have assets to deliver those objectives, but you don't know what's going to happen the next minute. So we can look at risk as anything that brings a certainty into our objectives. This year, I've set my objective to sell 10 million loaves of bread. Now, what are the things that can affect the achievement of that objective? Because number one, I don't know what interest rate is going to be tomorrow. I don't know what the exchange rate is going to be tomorrow. I don't know whether the border is going to be opened or not. I don't know whether I'm going to get the people to assist me in delivering the 10 million loaves of bread. I don't even know whether the machine that I use is going to break down tomorrow. So let's look at a number of things in terms of how do you address, how do you treat a risk? Because as I mentioned, anything that brings uncertainty to the achievement of your objective is a risk, which brings in probability theory and all that. But if you look at next slide, please. If you look at the core of what we're going to deal with today, you've identified your risk. You are in a particular situation. You have 4 options on how to treat and or how to react to that particular risk. Your first option is I'm going to deliver. Well, I'm going to be using bread because I love bread. So permit me, and I know there's so many other different enterprises apart from bakery. But let me stick with bread that I started with. I'm going to import a special grade of flour. I'm faced with where do I get the money from to import the flour. If I buy today, I don't know what price I'm going to buy it tomorrow. But for me, I'm committed to delivering this thing. This is my passion. I know that there's a risk that the exchange rate may change tomorrow. I don't care. I'm going into it. So I accept the risk. So the exchange rate moves from 380, 480 to 500 to 550. I'm happy. Then you have another baker. He's so focused on delivering at a particular price. He can't find, I will be exaggerating during this conversation, so bear with me. He can't find flour in this country. So what does it do? He looks at exchange rate, he looks at 2 years time, 5 years time, and says, oh, no, I can't accept that level of risk. Then he avoids it and he doesn't do the business. But where most of us belong is, yes, we know that the risk is there. We know how to go about it, but we want to ensure that it doesn't derail from our delivering on our objective, 10 million loaves of bread in the year 2020. So what does it do? It will atomize, and maybe I should take a step back. As insurance practitioners, our number 1 objective is risk management before we take risks. So we're not just out there to sell our products. We want to sell our product after we've worked with you to ensure that you can you've reduced your exposure to risk as much as possible. So we're going to look at some of the risks and what you can do to reduce the impact of exposure to such risks. Then the other option is to transfer that risk to another entity. And that entity can come in various forms. Today, we will look at transferring that risk to an insurance company. So we're going to look at insurance as a form of risk transfer, but there's so many other forms of risk transfers. You can have derivatives, you can have linked securities, but we'll keep it simple and we'll look at insurance. But let me also say at this point that not everything is insurable. So it is important that the number one step that we should take is not about transferring the risk, but number one step we should always take is how do we ensure that this risk does not crystallize. But with the knowledge that having done all to stand, sometimes we also need help. And then we can look at what is the right product, what is the right insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking at this moment on risk treatment of the day-to-day risk. Things we face every day. If time permits, we'll look at the extreme situation, extreme event, the black swan that the world got hit with this year. So let's look at, well, we have 10 risks that I would like to briefly address. Because of the audience, I think Keyman is one that I will look at. Then you have the currency risk, you have regulatory risk. You have to run your business in the premise. Your business can be interrupted. You have a brand to protect. So there is reputational risk. You have a supply chain, which one is a critical path. Then we have something that's come to the fore now, which is cyber risk, because when I talk about extreme events, you'll see the reason why cyber risk has become very important. And then, of course, in any situation where human beings are involved, there's always the chance of fraud. So if you look at payment risk, I will quickly, so that we don't have time to go through to details, but for most SMEs, everything resolves around a person, not necessarily the business owner. Your key man can be that master baker. He knows all the mixes. He has everything in his head. Tomorrow, he may decide to leave. So what do you do in terms of reducing the risk of the impact if he or she walks away? Number one is look at all the systems and processes, well documented. Don't let anybody hold you to ransom. Succession planning, what are the alternatives that you have? Then you've done all that, but still you want to be sure that if anything happens, especially from the point of view of death, you still want to be able to generate that income. So you can take a keyman insurance. Again, no time to discuss what keyman insurance is in details, but I'm sure Mr. Koya's team will give you details about that. I've talked about currency risk. What are the things that you can do in terms of mitigating a currency risk? First of all, diversify your products, diversify your location. Instead of importing, what are the local content that you can use? Is there anything you can substitute because you don't want to be exposed to a particular supplier or a particular source? In terms of transfer, a lot of financial arrangements that you can use to hedge against currency to be sure that you can deliver your products. Then for most of us, our industries will be regulated. And if you ask any CEO all over the world, if it's not number one, it should be the number two top risk for CEOs, and that's regulatory risk, because the regulator impacts your business. You cannot transfer this risk. So the best thing is to have zero tolerance for non-compliance. Get to know your regulator and be a good business person. Then one of the major things that we face as business people is property damage to where we have our businesses. And if you go to the next slide, please, you see that in terms of risk reduction, one thing that the commissioner mentioned is that we shouldn't cut cost at the point that we need it most. The best thing for you in terms of your business environment, where you hold your business enterprise, is to go for Class A rated buildings with sprinklers, with fire extinguishers, and all that. Because, as I said, even when we bring you back to your normal position through insurance, the impact of the psychological impact cannot be measured. So it's important. And then this property may be more expensive than the cheaper one, but it is more beneficial to go to places where you are going to be protected. And of course, having put your business in a Class A building, or the best you can afford, you still then look at what else, and that is taking all risk insurance. Again, no time to go into the details, but you find that Coronation will be able to provide you with all that. Supply chain, I think I will just run one that I like to mention is business interruption. Yeah. Typically here, we have business interruption as part of property damage. One of the things that you can do is buy business interruption on its own. As we've seen from the pandemic, all businesses were interrupted, no property damage. So the situations. Cyber risk. Let me just go to my last slide because my time is up. If you go to the last slide on extreme events, this is what happened this year is what we call a 1 in 100 years, a 1 in 200 years. These are things that you typically cannot imagine. A black swan, because I haven't seen a black swan, doesn't mean a black swan does not exist. And we know that the things we do not know far outweigh the things that we know. COVID-19 took everybody by surprise, but because we know that this kind of extreme event, next slide please, because of this kind of extreme event will happen from time to time, we need to then move totally to technology. What can prevent you from an extreme event like next slide, like we have, like we've had this year. NSAS is not an extreme event. We cover riots and commotion, political violence, all those things we can ensure. In terms of extreme events like the pandemic of this year, what you need to do is focus on technology. With technology comes cyber risk, but again, with cyber risk, I don't have time to go through the mitigations. You have to really monitor those risks. So, ladies and gentlemen, this year, the uncertainties we have this year arose from the normal uncertainties and an extreme event. For extreme event, this is something that you can do a million simulations about, but in the end, it is how your business can continue under strange impacts, your business continuity plan. And that all is about technology. You're selling bread, you can bake the bread. How do they deliver the bread? How do they order the bread? Everything on technology. We've had a quantum leap in technology this year, but these are things that we should do, we should embrace going forward. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Femi, for that very educative session. I'm sure I have my notes here almost full. Took down quite some educative points that you brought to the fore. And I'm sure that most of the other attendees on the call too experienced found the session quite beneficial to them. And I really like Dr. Femi's definition of risk, and it simplifies the whole concept because it could be very academic for us as business owners. But in very simple terms, risk are any things that could, or any condition, any situation that could impact your already established goals and objectives. And another thing I found very interesting in Dr. Femi's session was that majority of these can actually be planned for and well mitigated. And quite a lot of this is within the control of the business owner. You can have operational frameworks that help you ensure that you always go for the best option. You mentioned that the need to avoid compromising on quality could go a long way in saving the organization, and also compliance with regulations by any regulated anybody regulating the industry in which you play is also something that can be very consequential. We've been having, I think, quite some questions already dropping in the chat box. I would encourage us to send in more questions. If you have questions, we have a question and answer session scheduled after the second keynote session, during which we would publish all the questions that we've received so far and have our keynote speakers speak to them one after the other. So at this point, I would like to welcome our second keynote speaker for today, the person of Mr. Gbede, who is the managing partner of Crowns and Lords accounting firm. So he will be speaking to us on how inflation could impact your business. And just like we had with Dr. Femi, it's going to be a very practical session. It would bring it to the context of our businesses, especially the peculiarity of the Nigeria situation, which we're faced with at the moment. So I'd like to hand over to Mr. Gbede, who will take us on the second keynote dialogue for another 20 minutes. Over to you, Mr. Gbede.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As I earlier said, I say thank you very much to the Honorable Commissioner, ably represented by an erudite scholar, who has given us a lot of insight into bank assurance and told us how SMEs can plug in into utilizing bank assurance to boost their chances of success. And Dr. Yetunji gave an incisive insight into how SMEs can manage risk. Without effective risk management, it is difficult for any company to survive. Like the two previous keynote addresses actually showed, we are in an uncertain times, what they call the new normal, when a lot of things are happening, things we cannot foresee, things we cannot control, things that are beyond our imagination, things that are risky, that have affected our objectives and how we intend to achieve them. 2020 is a year that the like may not come in a long time, but has brought us to the reality that we always have to be on our feet. We didn't plan for inflation. We didn't plan for increase in foreign exchange. We didn't plan for a lot of things, and yet we are impacted. And who are the most impacted? The most impacted are the small and medium-scale enterprises because of their nature, because of their lower financial capacity, because they rely mostly on key men who may likely be the, the owner of the business. They lack the type of resources bigger organizations have. They lack the types of technical support the big organization has, and therefore they are more susceptible to all these shocks that affect the economy. Now, what's the solution? The best thing is to anticipate and prepare. And in preparing, there are different aspects to it. Because you look at it, some people are strategic opportunists. They just look at what the situation has to offer, and they run after it. And you have to avoid that. You have to have strategic vision. Strategic vision means that you are fixated on where you are going. Your objectives, the resin data for your existence. Strategic vision is what SMEs should actually look at. Even when the situation is tough, you don't have to lose your vision. You have to be fixated on where you are going, because that is what will actually take you to a destination. We also call it strategic intent. I know where I'm going, I have a vision, and I'm going to go there. Because if you follow strategic opportunism by saying that times are hard, you are going to change what you are doing, you are likely to be a victim of strategic drift. And at the end of the day, it will not worth your while. So you just find out that what are like I said the other time, what are SMEs? We have looked at characteristics of SMEs, and we are looking at it from the viewpoint of the fact that they have lower scale of operation, lower revenue compared to bigger organizations, more informal ownership. Most of them are sole proprietorship or partnerships. Small target market segment probably is a bakery that serves a given area and not one that has a national coverage. Poor access to funding. Most of the funds are from the proprietor, the owner, and they don't have the capacity to attract money from the capital market and the likes. And at the end of the day, the operations are low in scale, and they are usually non-subsidiary. Most of them are just standalone company without being subsidiary of a bigger organization or having subsidiaries of their own. And this one makes them to be in a very precarious position, yet they are very strategic. Look at companies like Italy, like Britain, like Germany, a lot of these developed economy. What is their backbone? Small-scale enterprises, small and medium-scale enterprises. And therefore, that is why this type of initiative by Access Bank and Coronation Insurance and the NICOM is very, very important. Slide change. Very, very important because it will empower the SMEs. I've told you about the importance of SMEs. They help in poverty reduction by empowering people, contribute to GDP, generate taxes for the government, contribute to social income distribution, and by the time you now generate employment, you just find out that we cannot do without SMEs. We have to support them. Slide change. We have to support them. And this is a very great initiative. Factors that are limiting the growth, because if we want SMEs to grow, we have to ensure that we manage those things that are making them not to grow. The first one is a limitation of funding, and that is where banks like Access can help you. That is where insurance companies like WAPI can help you. They can help you to structure finances. They can help you to provide cover for a lot of things you want to do. And then high cost of credit facility because of need to borrow. But this institution can easily help you to create initiatives like Access Bank has done for a lot of small and medium-scale enterprises, initiatives that can ease the access to credit by SMEs. And then we need to talk to our government. Inconsistency in government policies also affect SMEs. And that is where government have to support SMEs because they are the backbone of any enduring economy we want to create in Nigeria. Next slide. We want to create in Nigeria. And that is why you find out that to procure machinery is also very, very difficult. Since we are not a machinery manufacturing economy, it is difficult. Then import liberalization. If you allow cheaper imports to come in, the SMEs will not be able to thrive. And that is why we find out that we must ensure that we protect our SMEs and then also encourage them to export in order to have access to bigger markets. Next slide. Now, what we are trying to say, in essence, is that one of the things that now affect these SMEs from achieving the objective is inflation. What is inflation? It's a situation of general increase in price level, and it has a lot of implications, not for a particular segment or sector or company, but across the entire spectrum of the national economy, and is measured by the consumer price index. And there are things that recently in Nigeria, mainly as a result of sharp and consistent increase in food prices, inflation. Inflation rose to about 16% in August 2020, from 15.48 in July 2020, just as the core component also rose to 10.52% from 10.1. As at now, the inflation is increasing. And if nothing is done, it will rise the same way the exchange rate is rising. Change slide. The exchange rate is rising. And that is why we have to look at what are the impact of inflation on SMEs and how can they actually control it. The inflation rate has climbed for a 14th straight month, and SMEs are groaning. And this has been exacerbated by the effect of COVID-19 that actually came to disrupt a lot of things, stop people from going to work, stop farmers from going to farm, therefore putting the food sovereignty and the supply chain for input to SMEs operation into jeopardy. And that is not Nigeria alone. It's all over the world. Now, additional upward pressure came mostly from a lot of sectors like health, transport, and people need more money. Alcoholic beverages, as people believe that shepe can actually combat COVID-19. And you just find out that on a monthly basis, consumer price index inch up 1.54%. And this has a lot of implications for SMEs. It has a lot of implications for SMEs. The first impact is that prices will increase. When price increase, the cost of input, change slide, the cost of input to SMEs will also increase. Imagine a bakery, like Dr. Etunji mentioned, that will now have to buy flour at a very high cost. And yet consumer will say that we cannot pay a higher price. Increasing prices during inflation put a strain on the pocket of the customer, of the SME, who will now either buy less because his income is not increasing. And this one can lead to a fall in sales volume for the SME. So that if there is any slight increase in sales, it is coming from increase in price rather than increase in volume. What are the things that cause it? Government policy somersault, fiscal and monetary policy, budget deficit, rising fuel prices, rising energy costs, worsening exchange rate, poor logistics and supply chain problems, bad roads, asymmetric and opaque economy. We don't really know where the economy is going. No information. Increase in money supply. Nationwide security challenges. Imagine rice will become more expensive. Between 43 and 110 farmers killed on Saturday. Worsening state of critical infrastructure. Bad road gridlocks, and things like that. High cost of borrowing. Do they want to kill SME? SME beg them that they should not kill you. And now, what are the effects of the inflation? It has major effect on SME. It affects the value of money. Money becomes valueless. The money you keep in the bank cannot buy what it used to buy before. SMEs that don't have money, even the little they have, cannot be enough. And you find out that cost of living becomes lowered. You cannot buy what you are buying before, and therefore customer will want to shift to other things that are essential, especially for SMEs that are producing non-essentials. At the end of the day, they will see fall in their sales because people will shift to other things. Purchasing power will fall, leading to dry up of demand. Even to enter bus now, some people have resorted to trekking in order just to save money. Real income will fall, especially for those on fixed salary, on fixed income. They just find out that the salary cannot buy anything again. Slide. So you find out that you look at all this, the SME may be in trouble because of the fact that the sales may not be there again. Cost of input is high. Cost of inputs, other inputs, enabling inputs like diesel, generator running expenses, repairs expenses, even to get laborers to come and do certain work, they will demand for higher wages. Real change slides. Huh? You just find out that how will the SME now cope with this inflation? Slide change. How will they cope with this inflation? They can't just fold their arms, especially in these tough times. When customers, change slide, when customers will actually want to look for cheaper alternatives, when they will now, people are now no longer eating eba because of high cost of gari, they shifted to semo, some have shifted to pupuru. So if you are now an eba producer, people will take it pupuru and jaloke. Jaloke is, what do they call it? I've forgotten the name. Breadfruit. At the end of the day, what will the SME do when people are fighting alternative? But if they want to cope, there are things they can cope. They can take advantage of inflation to increase their price, thus growing revenue. But this has a backside. As long as your product is price inelastic, you can increase price. But if your product has substitute and is price elastic, if you increase price, they will run to other substitutes. And before you do price adjustment, what you can do is that you can start increasing your price gradually, not a sudden increase. If you put a frog, you want to cook a frog, you put it inside hot water, it will jump out. But if you put it there and start inside warm water and start increasing the heat, it will be feeling cozy, it wouldn't know when it will be cooked. So when you have to do gradual price increase, you cannot just increase your price, boom, like that. And you have to watch your competitors. What are they charging? If you charge higher than your competitor, you may be in trouble because you want to cope with inflation. You can also ensure that you operate with a constant profit margin. As long as a price can help you meet your cost and keep your margin, you can survive inflation. You have to ensure better cash flow management. Don't spend on non-necessities. You have to ensure that you only spend on what is required and prepare your cash budget to know the time when you are likely to fall short of cash so that you can arrange with your insurer or with your bank as to how to get additional money. And therefore, you have to go to a bank, a friendly bank like Access Bank. You have to go to that bank and get a sort of a standby loan. What if funds dry up? If you don't have a standby loan arrangement, you just find out that you may run into cash problems that can deal a death blow on the organization. So you need a friendly banker that can give you a standby facility. And then government is advertising a lot of intervention programs that for SMEs, because they know that the SME is the backbone for employment provision. And if anything happens to SME, the economy may be in trouble. So try to get into such program. You can still get a lot of financial backup from there. Change slide. So that is why your cash management is better. And then, in order to reduce costs, try to look at other cost reduction methods by trying to utilize e-platforms to actually fasten the delivery of your offerings. Thank God that there are a lot of logistics arrangements that are in town now. Plug into that. Get higher productivity from staff. Even if you have to increase the salary of your staff, retrain them so that they can take over multiple functions. And don't be over loyal to staff. Those that are ready to work, keep them. Those that are not ready to work, then try to see what you can do about them. Then there are some costs that are not necessary. Cut fatty costs. Even if you're a human being and you are fat, you are risking diabetes. And COVID affects obese people more. Therefore, as an organization too, during this trying time, cut your fat. But don't cut those costs that can deal a death blow. Don't cut what we call arterial costs. If you go and cut an artery, you will lose blood. The business will lose blood and it will die. So look at the type of cost you want to effectively manage your supply chain. Your supply chain, like people that supply your raw material, people that distribute your product, you have to be very, very careful with them, get better deal with them, negotiate with them, have good relationship with them. Slide change. Have good relationship with them. Retain your customers. Because during this trying period, customer retention is very, very important. Slide change. It's very, very important. Without your customer, you will be in trouble. There is what we call apostles. There are those we call terrorists. Where loyalty is high and satisfaction is high, your customer will become your apostles. They will be preaching you all over. Where loyalty is low and satisfaction is low, they will become terrorists. And they will be badmouthing you everywhere they are going. Therefore, during this trying period, return your customer and let them know your values. Keep your values. Values like competence, prompt and excellent customer relationship, quick response, quality. Don't downgrade the quality of your product. It can damage your brand. Your people must be excellent. Your overall cost, you must maintain overall cost leadership over your competitor. Ensure that you operate at a much more lower cost. If your cost is higher, it will reduce your ability to compete. Integrity. Don't compromise on your values, because the thing that is most difficult to buy is integrity. High quality technical performance. If you're on the web, make sure your internet work well, your social media platform work well, everything is functioning as they should be. Compliance with business and legal pronouncement. Don't fall foul of FIRS. They will come after you. Don't fall foul of NAFDAC. Don't fall foul of any regulatory body that can affect your business. We've mentioned customer satisfaction, corporate social responsibility, so that your environment will be friendly with you. Professionalism, that should be part of your value, especially those that are in service business. Total quality, teamwork. Without teamwork in the organization will break down. And yet we must cooperate to ensure that we achieve our objectives. Next slide. We achieve our objective. We've mentioned total quality. We've mentioned teamwork. Next slide. And during inflation, do not take any step. Boost your market share. Do not take any step that can devalue your brand. Brand is very, very important. Without your brand, you are nothing. Value your brand. Don't, like some people will try to cut corners. They will try to reduce advertisement. You can reduce advertisement costs by looking for cheaper alternatives, but don't cut advertisement. Communicate your brand position to your customer. Let them know that you are still who you are, even during these difficult times. Do not cut prices. If you cut price because you want to boost sales, in a period of inflation, you will incur losses. When you cut prices, you may even be giving negative signals to your customers that you have been exploiting them before. The thing is not as expensive as the price you have. And when inflation, recession is off, you will not be able to increase your prices and your competitor will just take you over. Maintain quality. Sell superior differentiation. Let your customer know that you are still their best bet and that anywhere they are going, you are going along with them. Next slide. Next slide. So, next slide. So, if we don't have next slide, we will now tell ourselves other things that we can do in order to reduce the effect of inflation. And that is forecasting. Try to forecast. Forecast what will likely happen and get yourself prepared. It is not when the thing is down that you start running helter-skelter. Forecast. Do your budget. Revise your budget. Look at how to improve your raw material input. Look at how to reduce energy costs. Where you can afford solar and it will give lower energy costs, go and get solar. Where you can get local substitute that won't affect your product, don't rely on imported inputs because of the high cost. And therefore, we must also appeal to institutions, to government, to see what they can do to provide incentive to the growth of SMEs. Provision of infrastructure is very, very essential. Elimination of multiple taxation, because that's one of the problems affecting SMEs. And during this period of recession and inflation, thank God government has done some tax reductions or tax palliatives and things like that. Even if you have interest and penalty with FIRS, you still have till December to go and pay the tax you think you owe, and then go and write a letter for FIRS. They should waive all penalties and interest. It will help you. Government should continue to encourage SME through tax holidays, provision of accessible and well-priced credit facilities, and encourage the use of microfinance bank to disburse loan and with very favorable payback period. If you are a SME, NIRSAL is there. The microfinance bank set up by Central Bank. Access Bank is there with its package of facilities that you can access to boost your business. Next slide. Next slide. So, that is why you find out that we cannot do without SMEs. They are very important, and we thank Access Bank, NICOM, and Coronation Insurance for this fantastic initiative, and we hope that such will continue in order to further enhance capacity building among our SME. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gbede, for that session. So we are drawing close to the end of today's webinar, but we still have a few items on our agenda that we'll touch on quickly before we call it a day. We will move shortly to the question and answer session, but before we do, just again some key highlights from the session by Mr. Gbede. Inflation, as most of us as business owners are quite conversant with, is the change in value of change in price of an item over a period of time. And similar to the key points that we got from Dr. Femi's session, I think we've noticed the same emphasis from Mr. Gbede's session, and it's that a lot actually lies within our control as business owners in managing the sustainability of our organization. And Mr. Gbede actually reiterated quite a number of times the importance of having a comprehensive plan that can safeguard your organization on the long haul. And good to know actually that Coronation Insurance, we partner with our customers. We don't just render services in risk underwriting space alone. We also offer advisory services to our customers, helping them mitigate their organization from all fronts, from regulatory issues, from operational issues. We offer a holistic package. And Mr. Gbede mentioned several times the need to have a proper strategy that's able to safeguard you over a period of time. So your cash flow management, your revenue management, adequate planning of your forecasting, adequate forecasting rather. And these are quite some things that we also support our customers with. We also support our customers on. Another key point that I believe we could take from Mr. Gbede's session is the need to also ensure customer service, even in the midst of uncertainties for organization. This cannot be overemphasized, and even as business owners, considering the last 12 months, for instance, in Nigeria, the margins have become a bit thinner, and so many economic and socioeconomic risk across the country. But it's still imperative for us as business owners to maintain certain standards, certain levels of quality and excellence in delivery of our business services to our customers. With all of this said, we've gotten quite some questions already, but due to time constraints, apologies once again for the 1 hour lag that we experienced today. We would take just a few questions and call it a day. So I think the first question I find interesting, and I think this is for Dr. Femi. It's about employee risk. And interesting question. It says during staff recruitment, entities focus more attention on technical competencies of the organization as against other risk areas. So how would you advise an organization focus their recruitment strategy to eliminate potential fraud from their employee? So Dr. Femi, I believe the business owner who is asking this question seeks counsel on how to make right recruitment decisions and potentially mitigate the organization from employee risk, which could come in a number of ways. I believe it could be IP theft, it could even be actual financial theft. So I'll hand over to you now, Dr. Femi, to provide some insight on this.
Thank you very much. That's a key and very important question. I'd learned several years ago, and I think that has never left me since. And the lesson that I learned in recruiting is, number one, you can acquire knowledge, you can teach skills, you cannot do anything about character. So the most important thing for me in recruitment is the character of the person. And when you're looking at the character of the person, we didn't have time to go through that in terms of reputational risk. what do you as a company stand for? Your brand, as we've been told, is most important. So if you have your values, and you're interviewing somebody, and you cannot see those values in that person, it's likely that you're hiring the wrong person. So the most important is
Very much, Dr. Femi,
the
for
character
that
of the person.
short and concise
Thank you.
response to the question. And well said, sir, that you can actually teach technical skills, but commitment, sincerity, and a number of other more critical soft skills might not be something that you can pass on to your employees. So it's very important to look out for those things amongst others while going through the recruitment process. So the second question we'll take quite quickly now. I believe this is for Mr. Gbede. The question is, how much financial leverage would you advise an SME to take? So how much, indebtedness can an organization in its very infant stage actually afford? Over to you, Mr. Gbede.
Thank you very much. If I understand the question is, how much debt can a company conveniently take on? Is that the question, sir? An SME, yes. You know that most SMEs are self-financed. I mean, the owner or the family or the people that set it up normally pull their equity together, and they usually find it to attract funding because of the fact that most lenders perceive them as being risky. But where an SME actually have access to funding, they must ensure that it is procured at a cost that is lower than their own rate of return. If their margin is 20%, they cannot take a debt at 22%. If their margin is 25%, if they take a debt at 20%, it means that they will be able to earn a 5% excess return on the utilization of that debt. So the first thing you have to look at is the cost of fund. The second area you have to look at is the nature of your organization. There are some organizations that take over debt as an essential part of their function because they are cash businesses. For instance, if you operate a filling station, you find out that your money comes in on a daily basis than somebody who is manufacturing foam. So the level of debt depends on the nature of industry and the nature of operations, as well as the cost of fund. Then it also depends on the availability of collateral. But no matter what happens, an organization must not take over an inordinate amount of debt. And the debt components of the financing should not range more than between 25% and 40%, so as to have an equity cushion of about 60%. The more the debt, the more the likelihood of default, the more the likelihood of the organization being liquidated by the creditors. Overtaking of debt, taking debt too much is not an option. You have to be careful.
I believe that for organizations, just like anything in life, it's actually appropriate you take things within your capacity. And I think it's actually a very simple rule of thumb not to leverage your organization beyond your profit margin. So with this in the interest of time, we would have to move on to our next session. And I believe that one of the questions we actually received leads very interestingly to the next session. The question says, what are the insurance products you have for SMEs? And I think that cue us in quite interestingly into our next session, which will be anchored by the head of bank assurance for Coronation Insurance PLC. So he has quite some oversight on the bank assurance partnership with Access Bank, and it will be taking us through quite in a short time frame, within about 5 minutes, on the offerings by Coronation Insurance. What are the products available? What are the range of services, and what makes Coronation Insurance and the bancassurance partnership with Access Bank a must-have for every SME? At this point, I'll hand over to Mr. Uche Okarolu, who is the head of bancassurance for Coronation Insurance. Over to you, Uche.
All right. Thank you, Sayo. Good afternoon, everyone. Clearly, it's been a very engaging session we've had today, despite the little limitation we had. I've had quality understanding from the session by Dr. Femi Olatuji and also by Mr. Omotayo. Interesting views, interesting ideas of how to, leverage on the opportunities to mitigate some of these risks that have been mentioned. So, without doing much, Austin, can you go to my slide, please? Well, in the interest of time, if you don't have the slide, I can just talk through some of the products we have for SMEs in Coronation and what stands us out. Clearly, from what Roosevelt said, Coronation Insurance has undergone some big-time transformation from where we used to be to where we're currently now. So we've seen us move from a particular level to increasing that level to over 100% in terms of GWP. And over time, we've shown class in what stands out from other insurance companies. And so clearly, in terms of claim payments, we pride ourselves to, giving your claim within 24 hours. And also, we have 24 hours customer service support, value chain support for our corporate, mid-sized corporate. We also have a robust digital operations. And in terms of a staff level, we have the best of breed in terms of talent, doing ideation, coming up with skill set, coming up with ideas to ensure we have a risk profile identified for customers which you can provide cover for. So in terms of our covering generally for SMEs, to the next slide. Okay, clearly among the partnership we have, we also have general products for the SMEs, and some of these have been highlighted here. I'm just going to go briefly into them because of time. So we have automobile insurance, which speaks more to your motor insurance, which covers against accident, fire, theft against your car. We have the marine cargo, which essentially covers importation you're bringing into the country for your various products. We have directors and officer liability, professional errors or omission liability, which covers failure or negligence of a practitioner to exercise the required standard or care in their duties. Clearly, these are some of the products we have. Next slide, Austin. Austin, next slide. I can just talk through what I have without the slide. And so some of the things I've mentioned also covers personnel, asset, liability, and operations. From what Dr. Olatunji has mentioned, clearly around the key man risks, the business interruption, the property damage, we have products that speaks to this risk. So what we simply do is to provide you a 360 approach to risk underwriting. We help you evaluate this risk. We're careful to ensure that you recognize the full scale of this exposure with a view to providing adequate cover for all of them. And so in terms of property damage, we have the fire and special peril, industrial oil risk. In terms of your personnel, we have the GPA, we have the group life cover, personal line cover for also your personnel, and also employer's liability. In terms of your assets, which speaks to your car, the content in your house, the content in your shop. We also have householder, house owner, and all risk and burglary covers for them. In terms of liability, in terms of your liability, we speak to fidelity guarantee, public liability, and also occupiers liability. I'd mentioned some of the products under your operations, which were marine insurance, also the GIT cover, business interruption, which Dr. Olatuji has emphasized that is very key in this environment. Clearly is something we need to look at. The NSAS event has actually told us the importance of having in place a retransfer mechanism which will ensure that all these risks that have been identified are covered adequately by an insurance company like Coronation Insurance. Next slide, Austin. Next slide, Austin. And so we also have the group protection, which speaks to group life, term protection, the credit protection scheme, which also supports providing cover when you're taking credit from a partner bank like our Access Bank. So we also have flexible plan payments, which provide some interest for some deposits you have with us, and also giving you life coverage for all this, for the investment you have with us. Next slide. And so clearly in our partnership, we are going to show you how you can start your journey with us. Some of it I emphasized earlier in terms of giving you a 360 view to your risk profile. So we're able to help you evaluate your current risk profile, looking at how that can impact your business and coming up with those insurance needs that speaks to those risks that have been identified. And some of the ways you can have access to this information is through what we're doing today, our podcast, our website, webinars which will be coming regularly, and also through our social media handle, and also through some high level of direct marketing. And so clearly, as we onboard you, you begin to experience those convenience that you ordinarily will expect from an institution which is out fully to satisfy the need of our customers. And one of the things that we are going to emphasize going forward in the collaboration between Access Bank is also a key product that might come up through the bank. So in time, you need to speak with your relationship officers or relationship managers in terms of premium finance aspect of this relationship, which will enable you access funds to be able to pay for premium for very important cover that will keep your business going. And so in terms of Coronation, the idea here is to ensure that we meet your expectation at all time, exceed your expectation in terms of the needs you want, providing unique proposition as I speak to all the 16 business segments of a business banking division. So because of time, I might not go full throttle into all these needs that will come, but clearly in time to come, we'll have our relationship team reach out to the various customers of business banking, and then we can show you a full value of what we have to offer in terms of insurance needs. So thank you, Sion. So let's quickly take you to income. All right, over to you, Sion.
We'll move quickly to the last agenda item for today. We have the Managing Director of Coronation Insurance PLC, Mrs. Yinka Adekoya, give the vote of thanks today. So over to you, Yinka.
Thank you very much, Sion. We have now come to the end of the webinar session. I would like to conclude this session by thanking all attendees and participants. We hope the webinar has been impactful and will help you in planning for 2021 and the uncertainties that we all face. Thank you for honoring the invitation and staying to the end of the session. I would like to especially thank our special guest speaker, Mr. Sunday Olorunda Thomas, the Commissioner for Insurance and Chief Executive Officer of National Insurance Commission of Nigeria, who is ably represented today by Mr. Taiwo Adeoye, who spoke on the theme of the event, Managing Risks at Time of Uncertainty. I would also like to thank Dr. Femi Oyetunji, the Group Managing Director of Continental Re, for giving us insights on how to manage our business risks. I would like to thank Mr. Omotayo Gbede, Managing Partner of Crown and Lotz Chartered Accountants, who gave very practical guidance and advice on ways to reduce the impact of inflation on our businesses. Thank you all for your contributions and making this session a success. Last but certainly not the least, I would like to thank Roosevelt Ugbuna, the Group Deputy Managing Director of Access Bank PLC, our bank assurance partner, for his welcome address and setting the context of the event. We are extremely excited about this transformational bank assurance partnership that we hope will establish us at the point of reference for the bank assurance in Nigeria and in Africa at large. Thank you all so much. It's been an awesome experience to engage with you this morning, and I wish you a pleasant day ahead. Thank you.